Okay, so it's 7 o'clock. I'll call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. First item on the agenda is, Kathy, can you remind me?
Is the enterprise budgets.
Okay.
Would you like, so I have the presentation, would you like me to make the presentation to you guys for the enterprise budgets and the CIP?
Sure.
Okay.
Aren't we going over the enterprise budgets in a different meeting?
Yeah, I thought it was.
Wait,
police
Well, this is
fire.
the,
we're doing capital,
this is just his, that the presentation indicated to selectmen on the
oh, yes, it was in,
capital approval.
Okay, can I make a recommendation that I'll view that on the YouTube?
You can if you'd like.
I think it would save us some time tonight,
Okay.
if that's okay
I'll
with
second that,
everybody.
I guess.
I don't even think we need it in the whole motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, it's the same presentation, right?
Yeah,
It's like-
yeah.
So it's online.
We'll save you the time. 1 hour,
No, we didn't.
51 minutes, I think. Is that the
Okay.
timestamp you had?
Is that okay
Yeah, it
with you?
started at,
Yeah, 1:51.
Okay, cool. All right,
Done.
then we'll go on to budgets, right?
Yep.
Which one's first, police?
Whichever one you prefer.
All right, start with police, I guess.
Although he's not here, why don't we start with Chief Kearns?
All right, well, we'll start with NEMREC then, the
REC.
REC budget.
We'll let fire go last. I always go first. We'll let you go last this time, chief.
So I'll let Kevin get into the budget, but I'll just give you
Back cleanup.
a very high-level assessment of this year's budget. So the budget this year for the REC is 1.6 million. It's up about, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong line. It's 2.952 million. It's up about 15%. And the biggest contributing factors to the budget are in the operating budget, and that is $95,000 in the lease and contracts. And I'm gonna let Kevin explain that. It has to do with some new programs we're putting in place, as well as a $50,000 other services for dispatch coverage, something that previously we were able to get covered through state money, so that we won't be able to do in the future. So, as you know, as you move out from the original implementation of the program, the state subsidies will decrease over time. So we'll end up losing some of that money. Not all of it, though. We still get 911 grants, and we'll still get a subsidy as a regional. And Kevin does a lot of tap dancing to see what other grant monies he can get for us. So, but the biggest thing is those programs. We did have the personnel line item went up about $170,000, and that's we actually had a decrease in overtime, but an increase in salaries, as we've been having trouble getting up to staff. So what we're hoping, or we anticipate in this year's budget, is that we're going to be better staffed, which requires less need for overtime. But that also requires that it brings the staff number up. So that is, we're not carrying any big capital numbers this year. Our assessment has gone up quite a bit this year. Went up to 866,000, from 680,000, 27%, and not because there's a shift between Tewksbury and Drake, it's just a general overall increase in expenses, and that's just, as we move away, and I think some of these software programs and things that we're putting in place and getting everything up to 100%, we're just realizing some of those expenses. In the reimbursement rate, or the allocation is 53%. It's the same as last year. Probably be revisiting that next year. The other thing is we got to try to see if we can get a third community. I'd like to take another run at Chelmsford. I know they're having a difficult budget cycle this year, so the iron is hot, so I might strike that one. And that's it. I'm gonna let Kevin get into the details of the budget. Here you go, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, John. So I think every year I've typically approached this way. If there's anything you want me to stop at or continue to go into more detail, please have me do so, but we'll kind of start back with the primary budget screen, which you have to review, which, has the high-level discussion that John just covered. So that assessment number, again, for fiscal '26 is showing that there is not an addendum given to us from our development grant that allowed Tewksbury and Dracut to realize 3 full years of their assessment costs being fully reimbursed to the communities, which is a primary reason to develop the center and to open it. And then in year number 4, it went to 50% of that assessment. And then this year, fiscal '25, we're currently in, it was 25%. And then that ends as a community, they don't receive that. So that number is why there's a little bit of that increase to accommodate all of the operational costs that I'll get into. The grant programs are still strong. We're still seeing an increase in the funds coming to us from the 9/1 surcharge that was just voted by the DTC to go for another 5 years, so until 2029. So we should not expect, as a regional and as all the regionals, to see that decrease below the $1.50 surcharge. So that's a great thing to keep these development grants running and to keep the center in good financial shape. But obviously that comes with some changes. Now in year 5 coming up of the operation of the rec. And as part of that, the next thing I'll go into is the salary. So salaries, as John alluded to, we're hoping to lock down and kind of control our overtime costs because we've had so much turnover as we establish the center and get people with built up seniority. We've hired a lot of people over the last year and a half and have had great success with retaining almost 3/4 of them, but we do lose some trainees every single time. We go through trainees pretty often because it is a difficult job to do. And with right now, we have 2 vacancies that we're in the process of filling. We have 1 trainee with us. And so that's a much better number than I've seen in the last couple presentations to you all. So another part of that will also to be look at hiring a deputy executive director. And we received this past current year, and we're hoping to apply for it with a deadline of next week, another funding cycle, which would be for 3 full years of a deputy director for the center. So that would allow the staff to have some movement forward, allow some more work to be done by myself and my team, and to plan for the future should another 3rd community eventually join us, which is a goal for us. Everything else in terms of salary, we have had some of those people come in that have experience, so we bring them in at a higher rate, working with Teresa and HR. We make sure that we bring in qualified people that have training, and it reduces that time. So then we'll get further down into the line items here, which, kind of go line by line. Do you want to go to energy? All right. So we have every year seen some minor increases in the cost of really the supply. We follow the town's contract for the center itself to make sure that we're getting those rates locked in, but it's the supply services. We have had some minor electrical increases for the use in the IT room that we're trying to monitor and work with facility services and with Vinnie Bommel to identify that. But we have had increases almost every year in energy costs. Repairs and maintenance next. We are still having great success with our custodial services so far for this current year being in place. They come in 5 days a week and do a great job keeping the center in tip-top shape, but there are some costs with that, not having internal people for that. The energy contracts and everything else that you see there are pretty standard and have stayed the same, except that in fiscal 2026, we've seen a slight increase in getting some additional things like pest control and services that we've identified that we've had over the summer and spring seasons that we've had some issues start to happen in the center. So we're trying to identify that and stay on top of that. We've also worked with Vinnie and the facility services department to make sure that our system is in tip-top shape, the sprinkler, the fire alarm, all the other systems that really are needed. And that's been a part of that increase as well. something that Mr. Kern and I are discussing is try to establish a little bit of a fund for repairs and maintenance that we need that are out of the ordinary, because the facility has started to see some issues with the HVAC system. Everyone loves hearing that, but that is something that we're trying to work through and stay on top of with maintenance, but that has been something that we have to work to identify further. And then the big next one is the leases and contracts. So pretty standard in everything that we've been trying to do with the center over the years that we've really kicked things off, and we're kind of coming to the end of a lot of these warranty and 5-year plans that the chiefs and myself, when I started, put together to establish how to get the center kicked off, but a lot of these are really 5-year terms, and then you have to either renegotiate another long term, or you have to look at what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of. The main part that I want to cover for you all today is that obviously there's a major increase from our CAD system maintenance agreement, which is there for $51,971 in fiscal '25, but then it goes down to $27,000 for fiscal '26. But then you see a new line being added for our new CAD system for $105,639 for fiscal '26. The reason why that is we're going through the implementation of a new CAD system, which in another grant, another presentation we talked about previously, is that we are going to a 21st century CAD system for our fire departments and our police departments that are going to actually allow us to get off of a physical server that lives at the rec and connects to all these centers that are very difficult for these communities to get access to. And we're actually sharing as part of a statewide, not in every single town, city, and PSAP in the state, but a system that's being shared from Dukes County to Tewksbury, all the way out west to Westcom in Chicopee. We're gonna be using similar call codes and records systems, and then having it uniquely identified and tailored to our center here. That grant to purchase the system with all the implementation costs was over $943,000. The town and the 2 communities that make up Northern Middlesex Rec are not paying a dime for that. That was in a development grant, and part of that kind of agreement is that you do need to pay some maintenance costs for the servers, the thing that goes into all this, cybersecurity concerns, of course. So that $105,639 is going to be considered made up of 40% of what our center needs to pay for that system to work once it's put into place. But we need to cover the beginning part of the year for the cost for IMC, our current system, to stay in place while we do the cutover costs. So there's a little bit of a double part in that for this coming budget, but we hope to see that modified for the next year, because we shouldn't need to pay IMC anything. So that's the big reason for that increase there, but it's essential for the center to run, and we're really hopeful that this will provide a great service to our community and to the regional. Truly, I think it's going to be a nice thing to see. It has been delayed because it's a brand new system. It's never been approached before. It's a very unique system, and to have it in the cloud and still have local server reliability to the things that we need to connect to for our police and fire departments has to be done right, and it has to be done without delay on their end. They want to make sure it's done properly. So that's probably the longest I'll talk tonight about our itemized budget things, but I just wanted to make sure I covered that with you all today. And then a little bit further in the next one about the other services, we kind of discussed this internally about making sure that we accommodate for some of that potential for, emergencies for staffing, and having the continued use of funding for police and fire to segment or augment the center for emergency when we are looking at call-outs or overtime with forced overtime. It's having a real big drag on our people that have been doing this now for 4 years, because our staffing has turned over and we're trying to get to that number. This will assist with emergency staffing shortages so that the police departments, fire departments, for all 4 departments do not need to budget in their own operating budget the cost to come in and help out the center. So instead of keeping this as a grant-only submission to incur and then have to get reimbursed, we're asking for this approval for up to $50,000 for fiscal '26 in case that is needed. And that would be obviously identified and reported and done, through those channels, but there's no guarantee that we would get grant funding this year, because we've asked for it for 3 straight fiscal years. They've allowed that and they've granted that, but it's an appeal to the executive director of the State 911 department. We just, we know that we don't want to keep going to that well, because we may need it for another thing later, like a true emergency that we could face in the future. And then, if you just, I guess, want to click through.
Professional services?
Yeah, so that's our IT provider. We're still working with a local company to identify on-site IT services, and we, in fact, actually just increasing it by a couple hours for this year as we continue to identify issues that they need to be on-site for, but they're available 24/7 for emergencies that any of the departments have. The rec pays this cost because everything still connects to the regional, and then it drives it from there. If something further is needed in the town of Tewksbury or in the town of Dracut that's more identifiable to their departments, they put that in their budget. Okay, but for the overall system, we need them there on site, and that covers that, and some auditing costs for the center, and of course, our medical screening and everything else that you see. Communications, yep, thank you. So that has steadily gone up a little bit, but we have initiated contracts with our vendors for redundancy. We've added some things that make the system flow better on site, and Delphi is part of that discussion, and we're just looking for those minor increases where we need them. Same with communications with computers. We, again, are starting to see some increases in servers, replacement. 5 years in, looking at things that need to be upgraded, things that we've had to pay for, unfortunately, a couple different times, such as our connection for Citrix, which is a connection for the town of Dracut to connect to our systems. These are things we hope to see drastically reduced when we go to our new CAD. So some of that will go down, but our office subscriptions, our computer replacement has been pretty steadily being needed on site, and to replace, aging equipment so that we don't have any failures. And then, just pretty standard office supply requests. And we have a miscellaneous office in all other supplies account, which we've only really had to start to use this year. And that's for a good project that we're doing in the center, but it's usually available for us. And then we also have I think the last one I really have in here is on the training, and that's to accommodate any training costs that are not covered by or will not be reimbursed by our grants program, which is excellent, but there still are costs for promotion of people to supervisor or other things that we've run into that they get very into the minutia of what they'll grant and what they won't grant for training costs. Training is just as important to hiring new people for our people at our center, because if you don't stay on top of trends and training, we run into issues with liability, and then you could look at lawsuits, and we want to avoid all of that. So training for us and making sure we have people moving through different programs is essential to have, and again, that's a kind of a cover for that, which we've discovered we've needed. And these are just other categories after that that are affiliated with that. Dues and memberships for our associations that we belong to in the industry. And staff development account, again, is more specifically designated to send people to training conferences, other skills and abilities, certifications that they can receive, some of which are covered by grants, some are not. And then that's, I think, all I have. Everything else is the OPEB and everything else having to do with what you put in.
There's no insurance.
Yeah.
That's gone up this year. Retirement's gone up. In Medicare is also in there as well. And an OPEB contribution too, so. Property and liability is in there as well. And that's it. No vision premium this year.
Takers.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
I have a question through you, Mr. Chair. We talked about staffing. Are we, aside from the director or whatever it was, assistant director?
Yes.
Are we fully staffed, or I had a hard time following because I know you're losing people.
Yeah,
when they
no,
come on.
so right now, this year, we are down to 2 current vacancies. We had hired for everyone but one. One trainee washed out in the program, and they resigned, and then we are working through one right now it's in an evaluation process. We think that we're gonna get them through. as their probation comes to an end, which is, not uncommon, but certainly we've invested a lot of time and money into them. We want to make sure we get them to the finish line, and we think we will. That does leave us still with 2 vacancies to fill. The person that we didn't get through training, and then the final position, which is a 17th position, which is more than what the original plan was for the center, but that didn't accommodate for our midnight shift having to be staffed the way that it is. When we've had incidents, fires or police matters, if we only have 3 people in there all the time, we run into issues, and you want that consistent delivery so that they don't have to call in someone that might take them too long to get in. We do have local people from both Drake and Tewksbury that live near the center, but we want to make sure that we have a consistent product. So we're down 2 currently. We hope to fill these last 2 positions. The process for interviews are starting soon, but for the July 1 start, we do anticipate having them all filled, except for the deputy director, which would be sometime between April and July 1st to get them in there.
Okay. And I had another question on the, that new CAD system.
Yes.
When should that be online? I know you said it was delayed, but.
Yeah, it's delayed, so we were originally hearing that the Phase 1 group, which is 2 regionals in Foxborough and down in Duxbury, they have 12 communities between them in the two regionals. They are going live with their system in April, and then again, part of the main part of their system will be in September. We're looking at a 12 to 18 month at a very high level, discussion for all the other centers that are in that. And so that would mean we're no matter what, minimum of probably February of 2026, but it could go all the way up until July 1st. So we do, when that cost comes into effect, we have to pay that maintenance fee. So we're looking at having the CAD converted, all the training done between January, February to about May or June to go live and be on the system.
So basically at the end of this budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if that is delayed, is that money prorated or something?
So the way that, it's a good question. The way that they explain it to me is that if we're doing an implementation in phases, we have to then accommodate some of the requests as soon as the system goes live, because those costs start, incurring for those centers that are on it. And part of it is going to be working with the police and fire departments and our own staff to implement part by part by part. So when the costs come due, they'll let us know, okay, this is this deliverable, that deliverable, and then we're going to be paying that out of that CAD project, that $943,000 that we got. But the implementation of the system, when it does go live, the maintenance of it to keep the system really moving forward, that comes due all at once. So we're gonna need to pay that when we actually go live. So we don't think it will go past that time frame of past July 1st, where we didn't spend it, and what do we do with that money, and then how do you prorate it? It gets very complicated, but the company that we're working with is really working hard with the state 911 department to try to facilitate some of this and make it easier for the community so that they don't have to worry about that.
Okay. And how are we doing tracking for this year's budget? Just any idea?
Yeah, so for this year, everything in terms of non-personnel costs are pretty standard and are on track. The reimbursement process for our coverage for the police and fire is basically at a point where we're ready to submit 3 months earlier than normal for our coverage that we've incurred from July 1 to now. So that means that instead of waiting until the end of the year and rushing up against it, yes, we know all our costs then, but we do think that the costs will go down enough that we actually don't need to have them in the center unless there's a true emergency. With our staffing where it's at, we're comfortable whittling that down and almost eliminating it in case we have to go back to it, we will, but we're gonna send a letter, and John will help me write that and submit it to get that reimbursement process started and request that additional sum of money. Mm-hmm. We get that back as a contract, and then I work with Al and John, and we'll submit all that paperwork to the state. We'll get that funding back in, and then that cost should not hit the accounts that we're worried about it hitting, so.
Okay.
A lot earlier than normal, and that will help us get on track.
Yeah, I mean, one of the, in looking at this over the weekend, I was, I noticed that the past couple of years, we budgeted a number smaller, and the professional services looked like it kind of needed extra.
Yes.
And so that's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
We're gonna need to do that again.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Right, yeah, so every single year, we decided to cover it under that, is to, again, the police departments, the fire departments have paid their personnel to cover in the center, and that's something that we're trying to go away from, but has really been essential for us. But the 911 department's been very agreeable to allowing us to submit for a supplemental amount of money that is not given to everyone. It's a needs-based thing. They identify that they have that money available. If it is, they'll grant us a contract, and then we'll go forward and submit a reimbursement for the things that you would see that are actually kind of covered by the operations expenses. They're gonna say, okay, we'll give you back that amount. They just can't give us a sum of money to go pay the departments to pay for them, because they're not certified to be in the seat. The dispatchers are, as professional, not one certified people, so.
Okay. That's all I have for right now.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, just the details in the budget are really good. They answered a lot of questions I had as I was going through it. Kind of curious, I'm kind of a stats guy, so the call breakdown that you have here, is there any level of detail that you can report on beyond that? And, maybe sometime send it to us. I'm just curious, how many calls are fire, police? Are they categorized in any way? Do we have drop calls, that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So regarding the breakdown, we can, and we probably will get into a habit of providing that. IMC, as the chiefs can tell you, is sometimes difficult. They really have to drill into getting that, because it's just an archaic way of providing that information. The analytics that are coming into this new system will even have like a dashboard that the chiefs and the departments can share with all of the departments and towns very easily.
Great. Yeah.
Yes, so some of it will be public, and you'll get all that on our social media, and that's for everyone to see, but then the drill down of how many calls for 911 were made from the town of Tewksbury in this past fiscal year, how many were from the town of Dracut, and then we can better identify what the breakdown is. Because the call volume, when it was first kind of thought about, was certainly down from what it is today. Dracut's call volume is significant compared to what we thought it might have been in 2019 going into 2020 when we really started. But it's very close, so I do feel that this number is accurate, but we've discussed the population number, talking about the census and how that's made up. But I can tell you that the services being delivered by the center and how the calls come in have only improved since we've been there. We can give you those numbers, and certainly the State 911 Department does consider the call volume versus population when they issue those support and incentive grants. That's actually how they come up with the formula. I happen to sit on the 911 Commission for the state. I was elected to that position as the representative of the MCSA, which is our Supervisors or Dispatch Association, and I represent every single PSAP in the state on that commission. I'm the sole member that works, or used to work, I should say, as a certified dispatcher. I still can take calls, and I do it on a rare occasion. But the idea is that we vote forward what kinds of things we want to see for statistics and what kind of things we want to see in funds being raised. And we have asked them to consider as a commission how you come up with that formula and make it more accurate to what's really happening in the centers, as opposed to just being a stamped number every single year. Okay, we had a 5-year change with the census, here's just the new number. Right. And it's hard when they do come out one year for it to be the same number, which is that 1,182,037 that you see down below for our incentive grant. But then the next year after that, it could be almost $100,000 more, and you're like, well, where did that number come from? We didn't take 100,000, more, of this or that. We try to work on that. So I can get you that call breakdown of what we have had for police and fire and by community.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Joe Marie?
Good.
Jason?
I'm good.
I had one question.
Yes.
So I know turnover's always been an issue, but it seems like it's lessening?
Yes.
Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say so. The turnover is mostly based on the fact that we do see is it's a trend in all 911 centers, really, regionals included, the people moving onto positions that they'd like to see themselves into. So we lost 3 people in fiscal '24 to police and fire. One was out of the community, another was in, and another one was on the fence about going to a police or fire, and then they left to go to the state police dispatch. But they, you know, they have other opportunities to go there, but guess what? They're still a reserve for me. So they come in, they work sometimes 8, 16 hours a month and help fill shifts at a lower rate because they're not full-time, they're not, you know, receiving benefits and all the other costs, but they still have something to contribute. But we lost 3 people in one fiscal year to police and fire.
Mr. Chair, I did have one question, and it's, I apologize, I think this is more of a John question. The Middlesex retirement item, it went down, it seems pretty significantly, and I didn't know.
Hold on.
Oh, yeah.
When you said benefits, Kevin, that
Yes.
the thought in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm probably just missing something that's obvious to everyone else, but.
John, I can help you with that answer if you want.
There we go, we have our subject matter expert here.
So, Chief Curtis from the Fire Department, but I'm also on the retirement board in Middlesex County. So that number, this was the first full year that they were a separate unit completely. With that number, though, it was slightly lower than it really should be, because when they went back and dug deeper on it, there was about 4 people that came off Tewksbury's payroll
Okay.
that was going on Nemrick. But when that switch happened, the way they assess each community, that number wasn't done correctly. So it's not going to be as high as it was before, but it's certainly not going to be as low as that going forward.
Okay.
So
So
that's
that's
where,
just because of that adjustment?
yeah, that was the first year, you know, entire 2-year period that the evaluation was done, that NEMREC was a separate unit, and that's where that number came up. So initially, they had nothing to go by, so they kind of spitballed it, the actuary. This year, on this assessment here, they actually had individuals that were working now, and they were able to go by those numbers. So it's not going to be as low as that in the next budget cycle,
Okay.
but it's not going to be as high as it was.
What, as it was projected?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you so much, Steve.
Thanks, Chief.
The only other question I had is, if we were to onboard a third community, how long would that take?
So the typical process, and the timing is tough now because the development grant to develop the center, they requested in March so that they have enough time to make a decision at the 911 department to then propose that final budget to the commission in the springtime. It's a competitive grant. We are going for a new fire station learning system that we really have identified we need in the center because the current system we have is really not designed for a regional center. It got us through what we need to get through, but that's a development grant for equipment. We've received, I'd say, over $1.5 million in terms of radio equipment alone for the communities of Tewksbury and Dracut since we started the center. So some of that is what we've gone for every year, but if we want to onboard a community and bring them in, if we have some of the core equipment that's ready to go for them, we can do that pretty quickly. It could take 6 to 9 months. But if you need a lot of infrastructure really in the communities themselves that they would need to get compatible with our stuff, it can take a full year. So because I don't have anyone actively in discussion today, we could be looking at this time next year to provide that to you and also for us to have our plan for what we would apply for with a July 1 of '26 start. So, or in that case, July 1 of '27, it just depends on when they would come in. But I have a strong feeling that if someone's really looking to come in, you can kind of do what a lot of other recs in the state 911 department allow you to do is get some of it in and wait on the other. Get maybe the people in and get the core systems and can answer calls, but equipment and other things might need to be delayed and you wait until that is in line and in process. So it's a hard answer to really give you, but I think we can do it in about 6 to 9 months, to be honest with you. We just don't have that community today in active discussions, so.
Yep.
One thing I do want to make a note of, though, is that that percentage of that incentive account would go up higher. We would see an increase to our overall support budget if that third community comes in, because we go to a different slightly different tier of percentage of what that number is. I can't give the number to you, but we go up another like 0.5%. So we would see more money come in to help with salary costs by, of course, bringing in anywhere from 2 to 7 people, depends on the size of the community and people we would take in, but that number would go up. And then if another community comes in, there will be, for the record, they would receive the same thing that we got as Tewksbury and Drake for that assessment cost. We would assess them, their first 3 years coming in the center, once they sign the agreement, they would get that 100% back. They'd get 50 on the 4th year, 25% the 5th year, and then their full assessment would be cost their 6th year of operation after joining the regional. So the same program is still in place, but they're really at the state moving towards regionalization. We're at 201 PSAPs right now with about 196 targeted for the next quarter. So that's a significant decrease from where we were just about 2 years ago.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay,
Okay. All right.
thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Great to see you.
Okay, John, you be the bad guy, you pick who's going there.
Draw straws.
So we got
Let's go police first.
police.
Making the call.
Yeah, make the call.
All right.
And my people.
I'm gonna start.
All right, so the police budget is 9.4 million. It's gone up 2.79%. It's actually kind of a, no offense to the chief, but kind of a boring budget this year. It's really going up, really the cost of living, COLAs, and, its expenses are going up just a little bit. It truly is a level-funded budget. The only thing I know of any note that the chief mentioned to me is buying one less cruiser this year because they were able to actually take advantage of a loss from insurance and being able to maintain the fleet the way that they're accustomed to. So with that, I'll turn it over to the chief and
Sure. Thank you,
try to make it an interesting budget.
Yeah, I'll try to make it interesting. Thank you for that. Yeah, so like you said, the salaries went up due to, the contractual obligations, step increases, those types of things. I did note in here, and I know it might be a question, but the time I wrote this, and currently it is still the case, we're down 10 officers for a variety of reasons. I've been the chief, this is going on my 5th year, and I think I've been fully staffed maybe a couple of minutes. So, but, the officers are doing great work, and we'll get through it. Our operating expenses, they increased $6,652, which really, if you're looking at operating costs, you're not adding anything. As you all know, the cost of those things go up significantly every year, so to keep those costs down, I thought that was significant. We were able to save on $27,000 because we got a grant. That was last year, but we're still in a good position with our radio replacements, so $27,000 was saved there. Another $10,000 was saved in the CAD software because that cost decreased. And we also moved to a in-service model that we have to do every year that's now free through the state. That was about $6,000. And we redid our TASER contract and saved about $10,000 there as well. So we're really trying to drill down on those contracts and the details to save where we can. We kind of evaluate everything that we have, everything that we do every single year, as we should, to make sure that what we're using and what we have is what we need. And then in capital, like John said, we were able to save $105,000 because we went from 5 police vehicles down to 4. We had 5 accidents in the last couple of years, and they were total losses, so we get replacement vehicles on those. So we took a look at that, and we said, there's an area where we can save, and that's what we did. So a couple of things I do want to note that we've done. Obviously, we got our full accreditation finally, which was a lot of hard work and effort by everybody in the department. I know you guys have supported that over the years with positions and various things, so really appreciate that. We also did something interesting, and we're one of about 20 police departments in the country that did it. International Chiefs of Police Trust Building Campaign. You had to meet certain criteria with certain policies that we have. In addition to that, we did a community survey. Community survey was overwhelmingly positive for those that filled it out. Not many people, fill out surveys, I understand that, but pretty happy with that. So we partnered with Culture City. It was really a no-brainer. We were able to take the funds out of our training budget to get training for everybody to become a sensory-friendly police department, and so that everyone could get training on dealing with people that may be on the spectrum or have sensitive needs. And I've seen that firsthand on the street, and I think that officers done a phenomenal job with that. And that's about it, really. I mean, if you have questions, let me know. I mean, one other thing I do want to discuss with you. So we don't know going forward what the budget's going to look like next year, right? That's a big mystery. And we've been on a grant for our Department of Mental Health clinician since 2016. It's an unbelievable program. We average about, and you probably saw in the documents that you were provided, last year we had 920 calls for service for that clinician. The results speak for themselves. The way that we're able to help the community members, the way that we're able to help people that are in crisis in a moment. We have an excellent grant-funded clinician right now. She does a phenomenal job, and we are concerned, and John and I talked about this, that next year that funding may not be available. Now that, I'm on the executive board for the Mass Chiefs Association. It's one thing that we're discussing at high levels, because it's not only going to affect Tewksbury, it's going to affect everyone across the state, because everybody's relying on this funding. So, so that kind of remains to be seen, but that's certainly a service that, we provide to the community that we don't want to lose. So.
What's the cost on that if we were?
Her salary right now is $95,000. Yep. So, and then I did put together, I know I was asked before, I did put together a list of grants that we have. I don't know did you guys get those? Did you send that to them?
I think we did.
Okay, if not, we can send it out again, but I thought it was interesting when you added it all up. Some one-time expenses in the last couple of years and stuff that we rely on now, like our grant funding clinician, $654,000 in grants. So we're pretty aggressive with the grants. We're trying to be proactive as we can, whether it's equipment, speed signs. We've gotten, a very expensive $36,000 drug tester, laser drug tester through a grant. So, so it's, I think, again, we'll continue to remain proactive and try to save the community money where we can on those things.
Questions?
The fire guy's got a question.
Any grants for the any literature toilets there that we?
No, okay, let me speak to that a little bit. So I know you saw that the anti-ligature
Toilet.
laboratory combination, okay? So our building is almost 30 years old. We've done a tremendous job keeping it up. I mean, people come in and they think the building's very new. So it's a credit to, Richard, and I know John, will do the same going forward. Projects over the years, we've really done, the meat and potatoes, the guts, the painting, like we're bringing in the sheriff's department to paint our building, right? So to save some money there. But we have to replace these because we do get evaluated by the state, and they come in, and if they see any bit of rust on there or a loose screw or something's leaking. So I think it's just time to replace those. Be nice if there was a grant, but it seems like it's a very specialized piece of equipment that if you buy one, it might take you 2 years to get. So it's
This would be there's a bulk order?
yeah, so.
You said the lifespan on those is 25 years?
I would say that's accurate, yeah. I would say that's,
So this will be the last time we buy them, because it will be trashed with them, because this building will be 50 years old, we'll have to replace it. So this will be a
We
one-time.
won't be worrying about it.
Yeah, you won't be able
We
to.
won't be around, it won't be our problem, that's right. We'll be done. All right.
But it sounds like that could be, like a free cash, right?
Yeah.
Good. The one-time expenses.
The one-time expense to just kind of,
Yeah, when I had this,
Gotta get
and it's
done.
not fair to John because, you know, he kind of came in halfway, we were building the budget with Richard, and when I discussed it with Richard, I talked about, hey, should we have a plan where we do a few each year? And he was like, I think it's better just to do them all at once, just get them all done, get them ordered, get them in, so if there's a different approach, I'm
Well, typically, we haven't built these things into operating budgets for one-time expenses like.
No, this would be a one-time.
Yeah.
Yeah, one-time.
How old is the one that we did replace?
Only like 2 years, I think it
Oh,
was,
so-
yeah. Yeah, it's fairly new, and that's how we knew that it was a lengthy period of time to get one, like it was.
Like everything.
Yeah.
So,
like a Picasso, huh? This is
yeah.
quite a throne they're building over there.
Like I said, there's specialized suicide prevention, there's certain, requirements of them, so it's inside ourselves, so.
I'm sorry, Chief, because I can't find the grant information. So can you just explain a little bit more, like the,
Which grant?
any of them, like what?
All of
grant-
them?
Not all of the, I don't need you to go into detail about
Yeah.
each one, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like in general,
I
like
can
how many, you gave a dollar amount, is that all state grants? or
All
something
state
like that?
grants,
Okay.
all state grants, yeah. There's probably like 15 or 20 of them in the last year, some one time, some are reoccurring, some pay for like the clinician salary, like I said, the
Right,
95,000. We got $305,000 last year to rebuild our entire radio infrastructure, and that was through being a part of the regional dispatch center, so that was helpful. We got an earmark for $100,000 to the state. So there's a bunch, and I definitely will get them to you so you can take a look at them, but listen, if you hear of any grants, let us know. But we're trying to be as proactive as we can, with the grants. And even with the DMH, situation where there's a possibility that those may not be funded for next year through DMH, we're gonna look at, see if there's anything through the federal government. to
I was
see-
gonna say, some of the DMH funding is tied to some of the federal allocations, right?
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is last I heard, I think, at least in the governor's budget, it was like 16 million underfunded for the state, but I think a lot will change before, that all comes out, so. Yeah, but I'll make sure that you get a copy of that.
Thank you.
I had a question around the numbers you gave for crimes and all that stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see, which one was it? They seem pretty similar to last year. Good to know that the drug overdose went way down.
Yeah, that's the lowest they've been in a long, long time.
Yep. I guess the question is around the one that went up. Simple assaults, was it simple assaults?
Yeah, so those, I know what you're talking about, but those are tied to domestic violence, right? So in this CAD system, I know Kevin talked a little bit about it, it's not the greatest in really like parsing out, kind of getting into the details of what's what, so that's how they're categorized. But those are typically domestic violence cases, and unfortunately, there's an increase in those cases, in those assaults, so they're not all the ones that are in that category are domestic violence, but typically, that's the majority of them, so, in that category.
But some are, if a situation comes up, you have to classify it as a simple assault, right? It can't be just something that an argument broke out and something happened. There's a line that has to be crossed, right?
Yeah, it would have to be a category that would be entered in, like when the officer writes a report, they would put, let's say there was crimes committed, they would put those crimes within the system, and the system then categorizes as that. So it would have had to have been, yeah. If verbal argument, it wouldn't be in that category.
And how are drug incidents happening around the highway
Yeah.
interchanges.
So, yeah, so I would say that our drug unit does a phenomenal job, number one. And, we do have someone assigned to the DEA, which also helps us with intelligence and what's going on in the area. They certainly assist us with drug investigations, all kinds of resources that we have with the federal government because of that partnership. The highways, the transient nature of where Tewksbury is located as far as like hotels and those types of things, those are gonna cause some of those issues, right? But, also, we've had issues at certain apartment complexes, and, I mean, we've had them within Tewksbury and the town as well. But yes, you do see the majority of them, hotels, off the highway, those types of things, and that's pretty common for that type of, our location, if you will.
And I guess ending on a positive note, with the accreditation, do you know the number of police departments in the state that are accredited versus the total number of,
Well, here's what I do know, and I know I'm really close to the chief in Billerica. I know he's not accredited, so I like to bring that. I haven't looked at that in some time, but, out of 351 cities and towns, plus there's, college campuses, I wanted to say the last time I looked, it was like close to 100 maybe in the state, and I think more since Post came on. I think more have really been working hard to work towards that. And I know Borica is too. Roy's a great guy, and Borica, but
No.
we used to be Borica,
Oh,
You want the lesson?
maybe you were, but not me.
that's a great thing, thank you.
Yeah.
Almost there.
Thank you.
Yeah, getting back to the toilets.
That's where this is going.
To come full circle?
Yeah. So it's not in the current budget, right, that we just reviewed?
So that was what I filled. I filled out the capital form, and I put it as one of my priorities, and that was going to be, like you said, a free cash expense.
so
Yeah,
it's-
not within the budget, no.
Okay. I was
Not
gonna ask
within my
John, actually,
budget,
what
so.
our plan was, is it free cash, is that?
That would most likely be stabilization of free cash.
Okay. Okay. But the other thing I was curious about is the overtime budget, part of the budget.
Yeah.
It seems low based on history.
Yeah, and we haven't adjusted it since I became chief in 2020, and so you're not accounting for, pay increases and those types of things. Overtime has been a problem. It's something that we're constantly keeping an eye on, but when you're down a certain number of officers, then you can make that up in salary, and that's typically what we've done every year. And I just talked to Al recently about this, and John was involved in this conversation about, kind of forecasting where we are right now and looking towards, May. We may have to ask for more money for overtime, but when you're down that many, yes, it can hurt you in overtime, but sometimes there's a way to, as you all know, but sometimes there's a way to capture those funds within the salary because you've been down people, so. And that's what we're hoping will be the case going forward this time. But if we are fully staffed, I think that, we're gonna have overtime expenses, of course, but I think we're gonna be in a much better position.
Okay. Yeah, when you were saying you were down 10 officers, all I was thinking was overtime for the other guys. But-
So
Yeah.
I can say that I think we'll be okay this year because we just recently learned that we are receiving some money from the Department of Public Health in recognition of being the host community for Tewksbury Hospital. And that money will help to reimburse the overtime account. So between that and some other stuff, I think we'll be okay for this year. And hopefully we'll be able to repeat next year and do the same thing, so.
Yeah, it's a big help.
Okay.
It really is, yeah.
And the training overtime, it's not needed?
Well, it is needed, definitely needed. However, It became a little bit of a problem when we were paying it out of what accounts, and it made it a little bit more complicated within Munis for paying it out. Yeah, because what would happen is someone, like the department would do a department-wide training, say like firearms, and that would be a significant amount of overtime each week. And what would happen is it would get paid out, and then someone would make a mistake potentially, and they would take it out of the regular overtime and not the training overtime, and then we're constantly going back to make sure, okay, did we take this, and what was this training and that training, and it got kind of messy, so just seemed easier to just keep it all, you know, within. I could still break those numbers out if you wanted that. I could still be able to tell you, like, hey, this is what we spent on training.
Got
I
it.
still have that information.
So, yeah, okay, so it's more of an accounting thing.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, that's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anybody else?
I just have a couple. Chief, going back to the stats that you provided, I was trying to see patterns, and I really couldn't. And I was just curious, is there anything that's, that you see that is either a concerning or positive pattern in any of the?
I look at these stats constantly, and I try to do the same thing. Like, what are the trends? Where are we going? You know, what can we do better? You know, what is it? And I did see that the shopliftings went down, which to me, it was really high last year and it was up.
Right.
And it was problematic and something that I actually spoke to the district attorney about because unfortunately, these people were not being prosecuted. We would arrest them, we'd deal with them, they were repeat offenders, and they go up to court and they're right out, back doing it again. And, you know, when I brought it to the district attorney's attention, she was good about it, and I think there's a better plan going forward to deal with people up there, and, you know, so that's one of the trends that's in the positive. Certainly the overdoses, you know, is certainly down quite a bit. And it's hard to really, like, figure out, you know, what exactly is causing that. Is it because the market is flooded with, you know, with Narcan, you know, and everyone has Narcan now, so they're not calling us? You don't know about the overdose? Is it, you know, is the education working? You know, in policing, it's funny, you never know the crimes you prevent just from driving a marked police cruiser down the street. Right? You don't know. You have no idea, because it may have happened, they may have seen you, and then you're not there, so, or you're there and they don't commit the crime, so, but I did notice that if you saw the traffic unit, the citations, they were down and they're way up, and the reason for that is because we were down in our traffic unit. We had somebody out for a significant amount of time, so when you add, and then we had the other traffic unit member who was helping us out with other things, he was doing like field training and those types of things, so now you've got two really working hard and doing what they're supposed to be doing, focused on their job. That's why you see that significant increase, yeah. Yep.
The shoplifting could be down because so many things are locked up now, too. Can't get at things in stores without.
And I was curious, the programs that you have outreach to the community, I think have been fantastic, and I've seen the comments about them. I'm curious what you kind of have in store for this coming year,
Well,
especially around
Yeah.
school-age kids.
Yeah, so, well, I got something in store. I don't want to spill it yet.
That's
okay? I got something in store. It's going to be great, though. You're going to love it. Just remember I said this, because you'll see it when it's time, and I don't want to spoil it, though.
Don't worry, it's gonna be in
But anyways, no, so right now we're working on the Junior Police Academy, trying to set the dates, working with the school, to try to set, we do 2 weeks. Last year, we had 305 kids.
That's great.
You know, we don't charge anybody for that, and we get tremendous, you know, support from all of our offices that help out, and the different entities that come in and work with the kids and try to make it fun. We do a water day with them and water slides and stuff like that, so I'm really proud of that work. And look, as a chief, I can draw up all the plays and all the plans I want, but you don't do anything or accomplish anything without great people. And I have great people, and they, you know, and I want to make sure, you know, that they're taken care of and we're, you know, we're looking after them. So, and we try to do a good job of that.
And kudos on your attention to the wellness program.
Yep, thank you. Thank you.
That's it, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you.
I liked your analogy in there with the backpack and the pebble in the backpack. You know, after a while, the backpack gets really heavy.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, you know, everyone can benefit from just being open about it and
Yeah.
having conversations, and I think that, you know, we've really tried to reduce the stigma and, you know, make sure that our officers need help, they get the help that they need, yeah.
Okay. All set? Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Appreciate it.
Good job.
Thanks. Thank you.
We waiting on that surprise.
All right.
This is where he drops his retirement letter. Deuces, it's your problem now, suckers.
So the fire budget is 7.5 million, and it is up about 303,000, 4.22%. 3.95% of that is, or I should say that the salaries went up 3.95%, which is consistent with COLAs and steps. Its expense line items went up a little bit more, 7.32. Looks like the biggest contributing factor to that was professional services. So I'll let the chief get into the nitty-gritty and turn it over to you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Kernan. Thank you for letting me present this to all of you once again. You know, this is going on my 4th year as being chief, and I'm happy to say that we've, you know, with the support of you as a board, and the select board, the town manager, and the residents, finally able to hit a couple of the goals that I set when I became chief. One of the biggest ones, of course, was the second ambulance. We had the second full-time ambulance in service 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day of the year last year, which was huge for us. It was also in service anytime we had a full staffing at night, which was good. With that, it responded, A2 responded 1,232 times, 970 transports, generating approximately $550,000 in collections with that ambulance running that way. Another factor that's huge with that, and I think I sent it to you in the memo, it keeps Engine 3 in service. Engine 3's call volume has gone up over the last couple of years. Obviously, construction up the north end of town has grown. So not only does this give us a second ambulance where the call volume necessitates it, but it also keeps the engine company in service for a longer period of time, which is something we've needed. Just happened, you know, summer before last, with A2 in service, we had 2 house fires, and you'd be surprised what 2 more bodies at a fire scene can do early on in a fire. So I appreciate the fact that, you know, the support from the town to do that. We're hoping to continue to run it that way, and as I go through it, I'll explain in the overtime budget why you'll see an increase in that. But you guys were also talking about grants. We've received right around $300,000 from the federal government, from the state government, and from MEMA in the last couple of years. The federal money we've used for training, we've used for health exams for our members to, you know, try to get early screenings done. The state, we've utilized that money for equipment. We just got $23,000, just over $23,000, and we just applied for another $12,500 with the state. So we have been fortunate. Deputy Goddardaro, Lieutenant Keddy, and Firefighter Lucia have done great. You know, we're in a little bit of difficult situation because there's really only myself and the deputy as administrative staff. So, you know, we try our best to get the grants. But as far as the budget goes, like Mr. Curran said, you know, total salaries is up 3.9%. 2.4 of that is just regular salaries due to the step increases, adjustments, and longevity. Overtime, 15.6% increase. So what I incorporated this year in my budget was the numbers that we need to keep A2 in service, the same way we're running it right now. I can almost promise you FY '27, I'm gonna try to get that ambulance in service 24/7, 365. Whether we have the funds to do that, we'll see, but I definitely feel where our call volume is and some of the numbers I sent to you, you see it isn't spiking anymore. It's starting to level off, but even if it levels off, it's adding number that we need 2 dedicated ambulances running in the daytime hours. So that's why there's an increase in the overtime budget that high. Anticipating 2 retirements coming up during that fiscal year, which means I'll have to send 2 people to the fire academy for 10 weeks each. So with that, those vacancies will exist during the daytime shifts. So I'll need to replace them. Operating, went up 7.3%. And the overall budget, like we said, 4.2% increase. So you guys have any questions about salaries or overtime before I go into operations? Okay. So operating, just some of the real highlights of the increases. Energy, like Kevin was saying, it's tough to, keep track sometimes with the delivery costs. With the new center station, we're still trying to wrap our hands around that and what the true cost is. Again, you have a cold year like this, it's a little bit different. So I'm comfortable with the number that, I gave to the town manager with it. Another factor with this is going to be, and I'll talk also about facility repairs, is the South Station, we're hoping to get heat pumps down there. We're hoping to get a grant. That station was opened in 2001. It was built with pretty much residential heating units up in the attic at that time. So the last 2 fiscal years has been a struggle for me with that budget. So with the help of, when Richard was here, and Mr. Curran, and then Vinnie Bomo, we're hoping to get heat pumps and get those heating units out of there. They served its purpose for the time, but now it's time to make the change. So that's where the energy budget, you'll see there's a slight increase with that. Repairs and maintenance for the apparatus, just the overall costs of parts and labor continue to increase. We did switch to a different tracking system for the fleet maintenance. When the guys do their truck checks in the morning, it's going to allow me to track the repairs and costs for that. There's also an increase in the state inspections that we have to have done. The company that we use has increased their cost to come out and inspect. So with all the fire engines, rather than us taking it somewhere, we bring a company out to do all the inspections on site. Professional services is another thing that might grab your eyes, wondering why it's such an increase. So Kevin talked about it with switching to a new CAD. This new CAD doesn't have a record system for the fire service. As we found out when we were researching trying to find a CAD, none of the CAD systems
Seriously?
have a record system. IMC has it, but as Kevin and Chief Columbus both said, IMC is very antiquated and not a great tool. So with that being said, now I have to go to a different company to have a record system also.
Right.
So that's where that number's coming from. Drake uses what it's called First Do. It's a great system. I've talked to the previous chief and the current chief. I think it's going to be a great asset to us. It's going to allow us to do a lot more with it, but it comes with a cost. So it's a $15,000 price tag with that. Also for our EMS reporting system, we switched over to a cloud system. We're having a lot of issues with our ambulances trying to connect to the rec. So we switched to a cloud system. So that's an increase in that, that contract also. We signed a contract for our power load stretcher systems. So we're in year 2 of that, so we're locked in at that number. That can increase. That covers every part, batteries, anything that we need with that maintenance on it. So that's why professional services is showing a rather large jump. I think it went up 31% at that point. But facilities and repairs, the increased cost in the PM contracts, and biggest thing right now is the South Station HVAC system. has been, continues this year with the amount of money that we're paying to keep that running. Also, it goes hand in hand with that station being built in 2001. The garage doors, again, when it was built, it wasn't exactly built with, you know,
Wasn't made for that kind of
yeah.
traffic,
That,
shall we
right,
say.
it's more of a residential type system, so I'm hoping this year, we're not gonna have to do a complete replacement of any more motors. I think we replaced all 4 motors already down there, but that's, you know, one of the numbers that you'll see that, you know, I had to increase that budget a little bit. Ambulance supplies, you know, we talked about the call volume's gone up, which means we go through more equipment. We were lucky enough, if there was anything lucky about COVID, you know, we were able to get free supplies. That, now we've gone through that, so now we're purchasing the supplies. Charlie Lucia, who's our EMS coordinator, did a great job of tracking down some free gloves for us, so he picked up almost $1,000 worth of gloves through the state DPH out in Framingham last week, so that was good. So, you know, we're constantly looking for it. There is free stuff out there to get it, but, you know, ambulance supplies continues to be one of the higher costs for us. Ambulance billing, again, volume goes up, collections go up, New England Medical Billing takes their share. So they take 3.4% of our collections. They're outstanding, though. They're a great company. When I first started, we were using Comstar, but the service we get at New England Medical Billing's been excellent. Our rates did increase January 1st to 25. We charged Medicare plus $250, but there was about a 5% increase in costs. So as we go into next year, the collections should be a little bit higher, but again, that means our billing is going to cost us more. You know, total transports last year was 3,780 transports. Revenue was over $2.1 million. That's for calendar year '24 that we brought in. And finally, uniforms. We use that account to purchase turnout gear that's damaged. With 2 new hires coming, that's 2 new sets. We've been doing a good job of staying ahead of that. Anytime I've had extra money, we have a running list of who's coming up due. The gear is only NFPA approved for 10 years. At the end of 10 years, it needs to be replaced. So we've been doing a good job of trying to stay up on that. And it also purchases uniforms, turnout gear, and uniforms also. So those are the biggest drivers for the operating side of things. You know, like I said, I appreciate the support you guys have given me since I became chief. You know, Mr. Curran, you know, coming in, you know, I sat down with him and Al Rego, and the support they're giving me for the budget. But, you know, like I said, I would say the biggest thing is having A2 running. You know, and Chief Columbus said it about his department. I can't ask for a better department than I have over there. The men and women that work for this town and service they supply is outstanding. They're constantly trying to get better. And, you know, we kind of, you know, when they get hired, myself and the deputy talk to them and say, you know, you want to treat it like it's your grandmother in the back of the ambulance with you. You know, and that's where most of our calls are, is for medicals. So it's, you know, that's how we do it, and all of them do a great job, so that's kind of where we stand with that.
The only thing I would add is with that HVAC project, we applied for a grant for that, but I also put in the capital improvement plan the full amount, just in case we don't get it.
That's good.
So one way or another, it'll get done.
That's good.
No one
And
likes to go to work and be cold. Just for any of you that might, you know, no one wants to go to work and be cold.
Yep.
Or go to work and be hot either.
That's a problem.
They're in there for 24 hours, you know? People forget, firefighters in there for 24 hours is a
Right.
long time to be cold.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
I just have, on the stats, I love the numbers that you provide. Thank you very much. Is there anything that, like I asked the other chief, is there anything that you see in a trend that's either concerning you or saying, hey, things are getting better? Like, I noticed one thing, false calls
Yeah.
continue to go up year over year, and that kind of astonishes me.
So that, you know, it's funny when you mention that, because when I did the department trends run chart, you know, you'll see false calls. There was a couple areas, false calls and service calls, that is tough to judge. You know,
Right.
it literally went all over the board. Just trying to bring that up now. So on that side of things, the fire side of things, you know, it's not a bad thing, but it's tough to get a trend on. You'll notice that the actual engine responses went down a little bit,
Right, right.
and those service calls went down. Plus also, we're at the stage now, when I became chief, or since I've been chief, I've hired 19 new people. So that left the experience level on the ambulances a little bit green. So we put out a policy that we wanted the engine company going all the time to every single medical call, just to have the support there for them. Now, with their maturity and their experience, there's not a need to send the engine on every single call.
Right.
You know, and it's a fact of trying to, you know, balance sending an $850,000 piece of equipment down the road for something that we really only need the ambulance for.
Right.
So that's why the engine calls have gone down a little bit, is because of that, is the EMTs now are confident enough to say, we'll take this alone, and they go out with the ambulance by themselves.
Oh, very good.
The drivers for the ambulance, again, the state hospital, you know, takes, this past year was almost 10% of our calls. It's down a little bit, you know, and like Mr. Curran said, we're able to get some money from the state. We're hoping to get that money in the end of the week, which will be huge to help the overtime budget for this year. But in the 6+ years, you know, the state hospital takes 11% of our calls. You know, the hotels, they're fluctuating a little bit. You know, we have the Residence Inn that changed over to an apartment building.
I am surprised at the number of, I didn't realize that before, maybe I just wasn't looking, the number of
Yeah.
hotel calls.
Yeah, no,
And
it's,
I love the breakdown that,
you
yeah.
know, Motel 6 is,
Yeah,
you know, and a lot of those are to assist the police because they're alcohol PCs or drug PCs. You know,
see, I was kind of wondering about that too, because if you were getting called, I've got to believe the police were also
No,
getting called.
most of the time, a lot of time, it's us going there because they've either put someone in protective custody or they,
Right.
you know, put someone under what they call a Section 12 at that point. So,
Hence the 2407 going to Saints.
yeah,
And those are all your ETOHs.
yeah.
And then your actual cardiac, actual medical calls, 879 that go to Lowell General.
Right,
And those are your real ones, but
right.
2,407 for drinking, that's a lot.
Well, and I wouldn't say it's.
I won't say it's
yeah.
all, but.
But we're extremely lucky to have Saints so close. So if there is a serious call and the paramedics aren't available, you know, they stop at Saints. If they have the paramedics with them and it's a serious call, they go up to Lowell General, they go over to Leahy Clinic. And that's another thing, to have pretty much 3 level 1 trauma centers right in our area is a great thing.
Right.
So, you know, I would say the Section 12s, alcohol PCs and drug PCs are a little concerning. Those numbers tend to go up, and it's concerning the fact because if there's and I don't want to belittle one of those calls as not being serious, but if there's someone having a heart attack,
Exactly.
you know, we're tied up with that. Goes full circle back to having that second full-time ambulance in service
Right.
as much as possible, so.
That was all my question. Oh, and I was happy to see the other engine that came in.
Yeah, no, that's a beauty, you know,
I know
and
you've
again,
been waiting for that for a
I
while.
think that's why I left off the very beginning, you know, that was my other goal, was to
Yeah.
update the fleet of apparatus we have. It's in my capital budget to have another ambulance. If it gets approved at town meeting, that ambulance is gonna be here actually in
That's
July.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because I know there's a lot of lead time.
Yeah.
on
This year?
equipment.
This year,
This
so
year.
it's what they call a stock ambulance.
Oh,
So,
well, huh?
I talked to the 2 companies that we used, and it was originally supposed to be November, and then he told me, no, we can have it in July. So we get that ambulance in July, and then the one that we ordered last year, which is 2 years out, we'll get in March 26. At that point, we get rid of all the Van Nose front ambulances.
Oh, great.
Which is
That's
huge.
awesome.
Yeah. You'll be surprised the difference in ride and the sturdiness of having an ambulance like that.
Yeah, I
Find
hope I don't,
Well,
I hope I don't have to try it
Yeah,
out.
no one wants to try it out, but it's,
But if you do.
yeah,
Next time I call 911, we'll ask,
Yeah.
can we have this
yeah,
specific?
exactly.
I'll try to get that to you.
So, I mean, that was the other big goal that I wanted, was to update the fleet of apparatus. And
Definitely
again,
needed it.
the only way it can be done is, with you guys supporting it, the select board and the town manager, and of course, the residents voting for it. So, yeah, but that new engine's a beautiful engine. It's,
Nice.
so now engine 1 and engine 2 are both less than a year and a half old.
That was a long time to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's great.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief.
Well,
I have a question about the overtime. So the increase you said was for get the ambulance in service 7 days. Was it 7 to 7? What was
7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah, okay.
But it also stays in service. If we have a full shift and no one's out, and 14 people are in, that ambulance will be in service at night too.
Oh, okay.
So it happened, ballpark figure, 45 to 50 times last year, that we had an entire shift in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's,
All right, and that amount that you've added should get us to,
I'm hoping, the only thing, and the factor that kicked in for this year is long-term injuries. So I've had one person that had a hip replaced, one person had 2 hips replaced. We had someone that was on maternity leave. We had someone else with another injury that was out for over 8 weeks. So again, with us, with 14 people during if anyone's out, it costs an overtime shift to fill that shift. So I say the 951 should do it. I factor in some numbers, guessing there's going to be some long-term injuries. But that's what I'm hoping, is that number will do it for us.
great. Yeah, and I think I had a question on the professional services, but you answered that already. So I think I'm good. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Great.
Chief. The ambulance basically covers the payroll for those firefighters that are working it, for pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Yeah,
wanted to try to break it down that way,
okay. And also, staffing is 14 per shift. And we're maintaining that 14 at all times?
Yes.
With the overtime?
yes.
Okay. Also, the second floor on the North Street Station,
Yep.
we gonna do that?
So that's in my capital budget. We're going to have a study done. I was away last week, but the deputy went up there and met with Vinnie Bomo, and was it,
Is that $10,000 study?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he told me about that.
So, we're going to have a study done, decide what's the best route of travel. Talking to the deputy, we've been saying go up on the second floor. The consultant that went up there and met with the deputy is saying we might be better off going out back rather than going up. So I want to sit down and discuss it with him, because his concern, thinking if you go up, you have to make it handicap accessible. And I'll beg to differ with him on that, because the second floor will not be open to the public.
Right.
So at that point, we get that waiver that we don't have to have it handicap accessible,
right.
which means we don't need the elevator. So, long answer to your question is,
Right.
it's in my capital budget for this year to have a study done, and then hopefully in FY '27.
We only talked about it because the exhaust from the truck blows into the living room.
Right.
Where they sit.
really?
And their bedrooms are there. So when the truck is idling, it's just blowing exhaust.
So
Now,
the
it's
door,
not a newer truck, so it doesn't have diesel exhaust fluid.
Right.
So it's just blowing straight diesel. So that's why, was 3 years ago we talked about
Yeah.
putting the second floor on?
yeah.
So I thought this.
So,
would be a good time to put
it's
it
funny,
back
because
here
when I talked to the the members of the department, and told them what my budget's gonna be. I was honest with them in the fact that when Chief Hazel was here, it was one of his things he had on capital. I made the decision that I thought updating our apparatus was more important than that. I didn't think the town had the ability to absorb purchasing new apparatus and doing that and building a new center fire station. So that's when I made the decision this year that, okay, let's look at, we checked off the apparatus. Now let's look at the station and see what happens. Another real quick thing on overtime too is probably close to 95% of my overtime budget is purely replacement costs. So when there's different town events, sometimes I struggle to be able to pay people overtime to get into it. What's concerning me this year is the SAFE program that year after year, we've gotten a SAFE grant. It's a state grant. And based upon what happens with the MBTA Communities Act, we could be losing out on that. So with that money, we use that to go into the schools, and we use it, Chief Columbus talked about the thing he does in the summer. We send 3 people over there for that. That comes out of the SAFE grant. If we don't have that money, it's going to limit my ability to, be out in the public as much as we want. And don't get me wrong, a lot of times guys volunteer to do it, even if they're not getting paid. But at a matter of fairness, I think they should be.
Sure, absolutely. If the cops get paid, the firefighters should get paid.
I don't know if they do or not, so but, it is a concern with the SAFE program that if we don't get that SAFE grant,
How much was in that grant?
I want to say the last couple of years, it's been over just under $6,000 each year. So that buys supplies and also allows us to pay overtime for different programs. And that's on top of, like I said, the state equipment grant that we get. So this past year, like I said, it was $25,000. We're able to get more modern thermal imaging cameras. So we had a fire over on Woburn Street, it was in industrial garages. They would have been very handy in that because, we're trying to figure out which bay, how far down it's going, and where, we keep on looking down and more smoke's coming out. Those cameras now, it shows the heat rolling across and stuff like that. So through the state grant, we're able to purchase those. Those should be in probably a month for that.
Nice, cool.
Yeah, that gives us one camera on every engine, and also the command vehicle will have one.
Perfect. Very nice.
Okay.
I do have another question. It just occurred to me. How long have you been how long's the new fire station been around?
March of '22 is when we moved in.
22? So is that
Could be 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
So things are working out well there?
Yeah, there's still minor hiccups.
Okay.
My own frustration is sometimes modern things aren't the best things. Give me a light switch that I can flip up and down that doesn't go through the computer system. We have an issue with our parking lot lights right now, and it's all because it's computerized, and they have to come in and they have to replace this and that. It's like, just give me a switch, give me a breaker, I'll turn it on. So, but no, overall the station's outstanding. It's great. It's the guys appreciate it. It's
Oh, it was sorely overdue.
and like Jason was saying,
From
that-
black mold to,
that old station, on a cold night,
Took a tour through there.
with 50 degrees, at different times. So, to be able to be in a station like this is,
Yeah, I remember walking through there and they had the plastic whatever across
Yeah.
the window.
Oh, yeah.
and stuff, and you can still feel like
yeah,
breeze coming through.
yeah. So no,
people
it's,
forget the hard work the firemen do.
Just slip in your turnout gear.
yeah.
Listen,
Don't
has
don't
all
laugh.
PFAS, and that's where we get the cancer from.
Some
The
guys,
smoke.
they
Yeah.
wear their hoods and stuff,
Oh, I wear my, sometimes it gets cold.
So with the PFAS, you brought it up, it's, my concern with that as we move forward is the life expectancy of that gear is dramatically reduced. So they're, pushing for it, and instead of a 10-year lifespan, they're talking a 5-year lifespan. So for whoever sits here next for me, after me, is gonna be having to deal with that. The gear we use right now I did a lot of research in it, the deputy did a lot of research. I'm extremely comfortable that the men and women over there have safe gear. The amount of PFAS in the gear is minimal. It has to be heated up to 900 degrees at a constant temperature for an hour, 2 hours for it to release PFAS. So I know it's, made to be, and some gear might be that way, but the gear that we use, I'm extremely comfortable with. But now with the law passing, we're going to have to go to a PFAS-free gear.
Right.
And talking to other chiefs that have already made the switch, they've noticed that it deteriorates quicker. So, but again, most likely that's going to be someone else's
Chief says not so.
concern. But,
That's it for me.
That's it for me.
great, thank you.
Have a
Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
I wouldn't have you go first, Keith.
Well, that's what brothers do,
Just in case, just in case
Thank you.
Ryan had something that maybe sparked his memory, I wanted to be able to, come back and say it.
Okay, we got no transfers, right?
Nope.
Okay, next,
Any of those pesky minutes?
we got a set of minutes. I know Kathy sent them out at, she had to change at the last minute.
Did he? There's more changes, like,
Oh, man.
well, Joanne, I think, a few times. I'm so
I've
sorry.
been called a lot worse.
An attorney called bad names? No way. Doesn't happen.
So we're gonna,
Any more motions on the amended minutes, just those minor changes?
I move to approve the February 10 meeting minutes with the date change and my name change.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Unanimous vote. And that's it, right?
I'm gonna pull up the agenda again.
Back in the War of
Did
1812.
I, Kath?
Yeah, it was just finance reports.
I was a surveyor with doing
Yeah. And we used to pour this kind of concrete.
Second that.
Using it for this
All in
limestone
favor?
slurry.
Opposed?
all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Unanimous vote. John, thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Rick.